Chapter 430. The Gorosei with the sword was full of anger. Dustless just casually said 2 conditions, but it was already difficult for him to accept them. After saying all the conditions, he might break out in anger. For you, these 2 conditions should not be worth mentioning. Catch those big pirates, improve your government and Marine's WeChat, which is more important, you think about it yourself. Dustless was not in a hurry. Whitebeard has nothing to do with his life and death. If he wants him to do something, he can't do it without some conditions. People are selfish. Guru, when he was about to teach Dustless a lesson, the Den Mushi suddenly rang. The Gorosei with the sword looked slightly stiff, and then he took out the Den Mushi from his chest. Sir. Before he spoke, the impatient voice on the other side of the Den Mushi sounded first. The Gorosei with the sword was stunned. He could hear from this uneasy tone that it was not a good thing. Marine headquarters, Marlin is being attacked by countless big pirates in turn. Sure enough, the next content really made the Gorosei with the sword's brain short-circuit, and his thinking stopped. There was a roar in his mind. Who on earth did this? The anger in his heart was enough to burn the whole sky. The Gorosei with the sword's eyes were scarlet, and his fists were creaking. He forced himself to calm down and asked coldly. Hearing this, the voice on the other side of the Den Mushi was obviously hesitant. There were too many pirates coming suddenly, and there was no way to know who ordered them. All in all, a large group of pirates were rushing to attack Marin Multitude. Poochie. Hey, the sound of a body being minced suddenly came from the other end of the phone, followed by a sinister and wild laughter. The laughter was overbearing and arrogant, looking down at the heavens. Good method, besieging way to save Zhao. This is a beautiful move. All the high-end combat power of the Marine is gathered here. Marlin in the headquarters is in a state of emptiness. The top masters are rare, and there are very few who can play a decisive role. He couldn't help but secretly admire the means of the behind-the-scenes mastermind. Dustless frowned. The owner of the strange voice on the phone seemed familiar. Golden Lion Shiki? How dare you? The 5 honored stars holding the saber immediately recognized the owner of the savage voice. The murderous aura all over their body uncontrollably erupted with a loud bang. Their bodies overflowed with blood-red lightning, and the smell of blood could be smelled when they breathed. The scene was extremely terrifying. Even Dustless was slightly taken aback by the surging murderous aura. First-generation Ghost Blade, the strongest demon blade, it truly lives up to its name. Dustless's eyes flashed with greed. Although he didn't know anything about swordsmanship, he knew that this blade was extraordinary. It was a peerless divine weapon that could cut iron like mud. It was much more difficult to control than Hawkeye's Black Blade, Knight. Although they were both part of the 12 great sword techniques, the first-generation Ghost Blade was truly the strongest demon sword, while Hawkeye's, Knight, didn't have any demon chi. Kiki. I've disappeared for so many years, but you old fogies still recognize me. To be honest, this old man is more or less flattered. Golden Lion's voice came through the Den Mushi. His sarcastic tone was obviously mocking the world government. Only Golden Lion would dare to ridicule one of the Gorosei in this world. You're still so arrogant even with your legs broken. If you're caught next time, I'm afraid you'll be killed on the spot. Hearing this, the 5 honored stars also chose to ridicule him. At the same time, they looked at Whitebeard's disappearing back and their eyes flashed with murderous intent. He naturally knew about the friendship between Whitebeard and Shiki. As one of the 3 legendary pirates, they were not only rivals, but they were also friends despite the difference in age. I've traversed the seas for half of my life. Do you think I'll be scared? Golden Lion was not afraid of the world government. He won't attack the Marine headquarters again. Even if the world government's power is all over the world, he is fearless. A pirate lives alone and has nothing to worry about. Naturally, there is no need to fear the world government. Don't forget, the land under my feet is called Marlin Plenty. Let the Marine fend for themselves. Regardless of the 5 honored stars with swords, Golden Lion Shiki's powerful roar resounded over Marlin Plenty, and the former was desperate. Little ones, flatten Marlin Plenty. Ouch! Following Golden Lion Shiki's order, the world on the other side suddenly boiled up. Countless sounds of fighting resounded through the sky, accompanied by a burst of inhumane sounds. There is no doubt that it is the Marine who is being trampled. The Marine headquarters is under attack, and we must return immediately. Marlin Plenty, the symbol of absolute justice, has been sunk. Even if we catch all these pirates alive, it doesn't make sense. Fleet Admiral Kong's voice was depressed. He was holding a den mushy in his bloody hand. Obviously, he also received the news that the Marine headquarters was under attack. I naturally know this. If the Marine headquarters is sunk, I naturally understand what it means. The 5 honored stars with swords were gloomy. If the Marine headquarters is sunk by Shiki, the consequences will be unimaginable. Marlin Plenty is the most righteous place in the world. The fall means that the word justice will no longer exist. Damn Whitebeard, damn Shiki. Fleet Admiral Kong couldn't control the corner of his mouth and cursed fiercely. He felt extremely miserable. I am afraid that he is the only fleet admiral in history who was captured during his term of office. The name of incompetence is confirmed. Cough. Just as the 5 honored stars with swords and Fleet Admiral Kong were discussing how to deal with the aftermath and end the failed war, a harsh and unnatural cough sounded. Looking up, it was Dustless with a smile on his face, and the smile on his face was no different from a fox. This bastard is more hateful than Whitebeard and Golden Lion Shiki. The face of the 5 honored stars with swords twitched, and the black lines hanging on his forehead were clearly visible. Dustless's smug look was obviously saying silently, "Come and beg me, come quickly." Chapter 431. The bald Gorosei with the sword looked at the sword in his hand and his eyes flashed with a touch of sadness. In such a predicament, he could only let Dustless blackmail him. "You go and drag that group of people, then I will send someone to support the Marine headquarters." With a gloomy cold light in his eyes, the bald Gorosei with the sword directly ordered, his firm tone was resolute and irresistible. But, Marlin Plenty, Fleet Admiral Kong's rough face flashed with some dissatisfaction. The Marine headquarters is going to sink. What's the use of capturing these big pirates alive? Which one is more important? And the most important thing is that they may not be able to capture this group of pirates alive. There are more pirates on the island with a bounty of more than 100 million berries. Before, Volcano used the power rock to eliminate tens of millions of minions. Marlin Plenty will be safe and sound. Shiki the Golden Lion will never escape the world government's inescapable net. After capturing him alive this time, he will be executed directly like Roger. His eyes flashed with scarlet blood and he waved his hand impatiently. The tone of the Gorosei with the sword showed a little anger. But, that's the best. Fleet Admiral Kong, who wanted to ask more questions, shut up. The world government has been established for more than 800 years and there are countless emergency measures. When Marlin Plenty really sinks, it's not too late to ask. Especially now that the Gorosei with the sword is on the verge of going berserk, angering him will definitely not end well. With a cold look, he resolutely turned his head and walked towards the large number of pirates behind him. His huge iron fist suddenly turned into a dark steel fist, which was powerful enough to smash any hill. This is also returning to the original owner. Seeing Fleet Admiral Kong's back getting farther and farther away, the bald Gorosei with the sword looked up at the sky and sighed. He looked at the first-generation ghost blade in his hand with a complicated expression. The reluctance in his eyes was clear. Then he remembered Shiki's arrogant and proud laughter. He bit his teeth and threw the first-generation ghost blade in his hand to Dustless. One of the two conditions that Dustless proposed to him before included the first-generation ghost blade. The strongest demon blade. Returning to the original owner, is it possible that this blade used to be in the hands of the celestial dragons? Other than eating, drinking, playing, and collecting strange things, they don't seem to have any other strengths. Taking the first-generation ghost blade from the hands of the 5 elder stars, Dustless asked in confusion. Clang. Stroking the ancient scabbard, Dustless nodded in satisfaction. Immediately, his expression became stern as he pulled out the first-generation ghost blade, revealing the cold gleam of the blade. A large amount of negative emotions invaded his mind in an attempt to control him. Eroded by negative emotions, Dustless's eyes turned blood red. His body was filled with murderous intent, and he was no different from a beast in human skin. No wonder it's called the evilest demonic blade. Under the influence of this negative energy, if I lose myself, I'll probably become a walking corpse that's obsessed with killing. If you want to corrupt me with such insignificant negative energy, you must be dreaming. As Dustless's voice fell, an even purer wave of negative emotions poured into his mind. It was like a vast and majestic river, easily suppressing and swallowing the negative emotions that had entered Gui Che's mind. The blood-red eyes that were full of hostility once again returned to a deep black color. Sharingan's evilness is worse than yours, staring at the straight blade in his hand, Dustless said calmly. At the same time, he carefully felt the changes of the first-generation ghost blade. After a while, he opened his eyes. As recorded in the legend, there is indeed an evil blade spirit sealed in the blade. I did get this blade from your celestial dragons. As you said, the interest of celestial dragons is to collect all kinds of things that they like and are interested in. All kinds of slaves, all kinds of diamonds, and all kinds of famous blades. There are also celestial dragons who like to collect them. Seeing that Dustless easily controlled the first-generation ghost blade's demonic energy, the 5 elder stars were calm as water. In your hands, it will not be buried. This is natural, the gold that was buried before will rebloom with its own luster. Dustless's casual words directly made the 5 elder stars' face twitch. This implied that during the period when the first-generation ghost blade was in his hands, it had been buried in the soil. This was a direct slap in his old face. That's true. After thinking about it for a while, the bald quintet elder stars did not deny it. During the period when he had the first-generation ghost blade until now, the number of real battles was very few. It could not even be counted with one hand. To some extent, it was like an ornament that accompanied him all day long. It is not an exaggeration to say that it is a disgrace to the glory of the first-generation ghost blade. The second condition, after returning to Mariehua, I will send someone to deliver it. His old face was replaced by a painful color. That was the information that the government spent hundreds of years to collect, and it was cheated by Dustless so casually. He naturally felt unbalanced in his heart. It has always been the world government that slaughters others, and they, the 5 elder stars, sit on the heads of others to talk about conditions. This feeling of being slaughtered is really uncomfortable. You should know the importance of that kind of thing, and what kind of chaos it will cause if it is exposed to the world. Thinking of how sensitive Wu Chen was when he asked for things, the 5 elder stars of light still instructed him with a heavy heart. The world government had been operating for more than 800 years, and countless inhumane and dark things had been done secretly. Once it was exposed, the shock it would cause would definitely be unprecedented. But as a corresponding condition, you must keep Mariehua intact. In addition, you must capture the bastard Golden Lion Shiki alive. This old man will kill him with his own sword. Talking about Golden Lion Shiki, the pale face of the 5 elder stars of light suddenly collapsed, gloomy like water, his eyes were about to crack, and he gnashed his teeth in hatred. Whitebeard is hateful, but compared to Golden Lion who dared to take the initiative to attack the Marine headquarters, Whitebeard is much more lovely and kind. As you wish. The void in front of Dustless suddenly began to distort, forming a small vortex, overflowing with suction force, sucking his whole body in. Chapter 432. Above the island, there were no clouds for thousands of miles and it was clear. The bright sun shrouded this pure land. The Marine headquarters, known as the most righteous place in the world, Marlindo. The only difference was that the ground of Marlindo reflected countless black spots. Looking up, there were countless broken ridges floating in the void, or small particles like stones, or stones larger than a person, among which there were many super buildings, and even large marine warships floating. This unprecedented scene was extremely terrifying. They densely covered the entire expanse of space, and a pitch-black shadow appeared in the expanse of space that was supposed to be bright and sunny. The black shadow covered the area, and all the Marines had a huge mountain in their hearts, their faces were dead, and their colorless pupils were dead. Golden Lion Shiki, a despicable villain who took advantage of the situation. In the office of the Marine Fleet Admiral, Tsuru's old face was filled with despair, and her old palms were sweating. Even if she had wisdom above the entire Marine, in the face of such embarrassment, she couldn't change anything. In the face of absolute power, even if you have thousands of wisdom, in the face of all kinds of obstacles flying in the sky, it is useless. This exaggerated large-scale super attack, even an admiral can only look at it and sigh. The one with such ability is naturally the legendary existence of one of the three pirates, Golden Lion Shiki. At the beginning, Golden Lion wanted to join forces with Roger to rule the world, but the latter refused his proposal. Golden Lion was so angry that he launched a fierce decisive battle with Roger, which was known as the Battle of Eight Wall. Roger's pirates, who were originally at the end of the road, were saved by a sudden storm. Ha ha ha. Garp, Sengoku, and Z, including the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, all think that they are fishermen who reap the benefits of others. In fact, they are also prey in the eyes of others. They always think that they are omnipotent and in control of everything. The Marines and the world government are really ridiculous. A strong figure stood calmly in the air, looking down at Malinduo. He had a cigar in his mouth, and his bronze skin accentuated his strong physique. He looked majestic without being angry. This man, he has everything of a lion, the hair of a lion, the inviolable majesty of a lion. Not only that, but he also has the ambition and courage of a lion roaring in the 4 seas and swallowing the world. Golden Lion, do you really have to be so ruthless? I can guarantee that you won't be affected by the Marine for the next half of your life. If you destroy Marlin today, you should know what it means. A powerful voice came with a warning. The person who spoke was Vice Admiral Tsuru, who was in the attic of the Marine headquarters. Looking up at the Golden Lion in the sky, as well as the floating objects that supported his power, Lieutenant General Tsuru clearly lacked confidence, but she still clenched her teeth and insisted. She was also from Roger's era, so she was naturally not afraid of the Golden Lion. This suggestion is really stupid. Hearing this, Golden Lion's ferocious face revealed a mocking expression. You are also a figure of the previous era. During this period, we have fought more than dozens of times. Don't you know my character? Do you think I, the Golden Lion Shiki, am that kind of person to live in obscurity? The merciless sarcasm made Lieutenant General Tsuru speechless. The ambition of the Golden Lion Shiki to conquer the world would not be extinguished just because of the discomfort brought by the aging of his body and the chopping off of his legs. Disappear, Marine. With the roar of the Golden Lion Shiki, all kinds of floating objects in the sky surged violently, and immediately, under the horrified gaze of everyone, they fell like a rainstorm. Boom! Dozens of dazzling white lights rose from the ground and swept straight towards the floating objects falling from the sky, setting off a huge explosion. Many of the large floating objects were dismembered, turning into tiny fragments. Most of the Marine elites followed Fleet Admiral Kong to encircle Whitebeard and others. There were still many strong people in the Marine headquarters, and they all showed their power and destroyed the falling floating objects. The mentality of daring to challenge fate was good, but the reality was cruel. Even if they tried their best, in the face of the boundless super-large floating objects, they could only helplessly watch the slowly falling floating objects in horror. All the Marines were in despair. Just when everyone lost all confidence, a cold low voice sounded throughout the Marlin, like a breeze, dispelling the panic in the hearts of all the Marines. Chibaku Tensei. Simple and casual words fell lightly to the ground, but the world changed with it. The falling floating objects stopped, and not only that, but they also strangely floated up. An unprecedented supergravity enveloped the entire Marlin. The sudden appearance of the gravitational force was extremely mysterious. The floating objects that fell down were all reabsorbed into the sky and slowly floated up. Every blade of grass, every tree, and every piece of debris in Marlin was not affected by the gravitational force. Obviously, it was deliberately aimed at these floating objects. Bastard, who did this? His proud face suddenly became gloomy, staring at the large floating objects rising again. Golden Lion Shiki's voice, filled with endless killing intent, exploded throughout the sky. At the same time, his observation haki was released, and the entire Marlin situation was taken into his eyes. In less than a few breaths, a strange figure also floating in the sky came into his eyes. Celestial dragons? This is rare. After perceiving the clothes of the person who came, his old face full of anger was quickly replaced by surprise, and then surged with deep killing intent. Bullshit, celestial dragons, your G.O.D. identity is useless to me. I never thought that the identity of celestial dragons would be useful to you. The indifferent voice of Gujing resounded through the sky, and a dark shadow covered the sky. Golden Lion Shiki was stunned and looked up. At this moment, an unprecedented meteorite came straight to him. Chapter 433. The majestic meteorite covered the sky and the earth, like a dark cloud covering the sun, and its volume was immeasurable. Golden Lion Shiki's ferocious face always remained calm, and even the corner of his mouth was leisurely blowing smoke rings. Suddenly, he looked at the meteorite that was smashing towards him without fear, and the contempt in the corner of his mouth was obvious. Stupid little devil, you are arrogant just because you have a little strength. This old man's ability is to restrain this kind of thing. Little devils who don't even have teeth should go home and drink milk. The thick and rough lips were raised high, and Golden Lion Shiki's face was full of arrogance. The cigar in his hand was put back into his mouth, and under everyone's horrified gaze, he did not retreat, and his whole body rushed forward. Seeing this, Dustless also frowned, and immediately his brows relaxed, looking at the scene in front of him with interest. It turned out to be him. Maybe the Marines can be saved, but the sword in his hand, staring at Dustless in the sky, Vice Admiral Tsuru recognized Dustless at a glance. After all, she had met Mariewa once before, and the sword in Dustless's hand attracted her attention. You can even take his beloved sword from his old man. The old wrinkled face was full of interest, and Vice Admiral Tsuru said incredulously. Being able to take his precious sword from the hands of the 5 Elder Stars was equivalent to killing him directly. What kind of monster is that guy, and he really stopped such a big meteorite? Suddenly, there was a deafening sound of astonishment from the ground, resounding through the sky. Marlin's many Marines looked at the thin figure that blocked the meteorite. It was Golden Lion Shiki with a cigar in his mouth, and he even resisted the erosion of the meteorite with one hand. You want to hit me with this kind of little thing? The powerful and advantageous lion roar resounded through the world, containing an indescribable special power, lingering between heaven and earth for a long time before dispersing. The arrogant tone revealed sarcasm and disdain, and everyone could hear it. Everyone knows that I'm a float fruit user. You still want to hurt me with this kind of attack? I really don't know if you're too naive or too stupid. Dustless's hands suddenly exerted force, and the huge meteorite began to move again. The only difference was that the person being hit this time was Dustless himself. Serves you right for shooting yourself in the foot. With a playful smile on his face, Golden Lion Shiki controlled the giant meteorite and smashed it towards Dustless. He was a floating float fruit user. He could make himself or objects float in the air without gravity, and he could also control objects, non-living things, that he had touched to float. Floating objects can be controlled to attack enemies. What a strange ability. It doesn't even seem to have a limit, Dustless asked in astonishment as ripples appeared in his calm eyes, quietly spreading out like water ripples. Everyone knew about the meteorite body formed by the Chibaku heavenly star. That's a pretty good ability. The astonished look returned to its original state. The materials used to make the Chibaku heavenly star were taken from the hands of Golden Lion Shiki. It was barely reasonable that he could control the Chibaku heavenly star. Raising his eyes, Dustless stared at the slowly approaching meteorite, and he didn't avoid it. Raising his palm high and aiming at the center of the meteorite, his deep black eyes turned into the blue tensigan, and a turbulent repulsive force shot out from the palm of his hand. Boom boom boom, the meteorite condensed by naval battleships and buildings burst in an instant, and the powerful and irresistible force easily annihilated it. The debris in the sky fell with the collapse of the meteorite, turning into small particle-like fragments. The dark clouds covering the sky became clear again. Bathed in the fresh sunlight, Marlin's many navies felt relieved. There was a meteor floating in the sky, it might fall at any time. No one could let go of the fear of the meteor that covered Marlin. Is it a strong impact caused by hitting the air? Golden Lion Shiki's tone was uncertain, his brows wrinkled, and his two thick black eyebrows were even solidified together. He couldn't help but think of one of his old enemies, the Warring States of Buddha, and his ability was the same. The same ability, even the same trick, was to raise the palm of his hand to produce a strong impact. Suddenly, there was a strange energy fluctuation behind him, Golden Lion Shiki's thinking face solidified, and it was replaced by a boiling killing intent. It turned into a hurricane-like raging, and in the blink of an eye, it crossed layers of the void. War wave. The sword tied to his right foot kicked out a cold light, and an awe-inspiring slash followed. The huge slash cut through the thorns, and the harsh roar resounded through the sky, and the whole sea was buzzing, making people's scalp numb and their ears dizzy. Although I'm a dabbler in kendo, I don't use the skills of kendo, but, the corner of his mouth swept into a strange smile, and his eyes overflowed with scarlet cold light. Dustless did not show weakness, and the first-generation ghost blade came out of the scabbard, and a scarlet-red slash was waved. Condensing my own power into a blade, and then slashing it out is still easy. The rough red light pulsed with a demonic halo, and there was no skill at all. It was the purest power, and then it was swung out with all the strength of the body. Even so, the power was still amazing. Boom boom boom, the red and white light intertwined, setting off a strong impact, and a blade-like airwave spread out, and the lazy clouds in the sky were scattered. Vulgar, ordinary people who only know how to pretend to be cultured. Seeing such a situation happening, Golden Lion Shiki's old face turned green. His slash of a kendo master was offset by a rookie who had just entered the door. This was a direct slap to his old face. The first-generation ghost blade. It's a waste for such a vulgar person like you to hold it. With a greedy light in his eyes, Golden Lion Shiki roared out like a cannonball. The swordsman's love for the sword was not easy to feel. Now that he saw the peerless blade being ruined by a little brat, Golden Lion Shiki naturally wanted to save the first-generation ghost blade from the fire and water. Chapter 434. People are greedy. The so-called gentleman loves money and gets it through Tao. This kind of strange idea does not exist at all. The world in front of him pays attention to strength, and people with big fists can plunder everything. The world government can exploit the world because of its big fists, and the same is true for the industry of One Piece. Now Golden Lion Shiki feels that his fist is bigger than Dustless. He is a kendo master, and Dustless is just a beginner. It is reasonable to rob him. It is a pity that such a good peerless artifact is ruined by a monk. Wishful thinking old man, if you want to take the first-generation ghost blade, then come at me. I am afraid that your hands are not long enough. Dustless stared at the attacking Golden Lion Shiki without fear. He sneered coldly, and at the same time, his eyes narrowed slightly, carefully looking at the two famous swords tied to his feet. It is naturally not an ordinary thing to be worthy of Golden Lion Shiki. Whiz! Without nonsense, he held the hilt with both hands, and his pupils focused on Golden Lion Shiki. The first-generation ghost blade fell, and a crimson sword pressure swept straight out. Insignificant skill. If the first-generation ghost blade were to be used by you, it would only bury his glory. Sensing the coldness of the incoming red light, the Golden Lion Shiki raised his head to the sky and laughed maniacally. With a domineering aura that looked down on everything, his shiny golden hair danced in the wind. He raised his right foot high, and another even more ferocious strike flew out. It was several times more ferocious than the previous white light. Boom boom boom, the void splashed out a ripple again, and the momentum of the silver chop was obviously slightly better. The previous two forces no longer offset each other, but simply swallowed and annihilated Dustless's chop. Like a beast that had eaten and drunk, the silver light became bigger, and with more ferocious force, it attacked Dustless. You are worthy of being the legendary great pirate. It is undeniable that in terms of kendo, I am a beginner, and I am indeed not as good as you, a great pirate who has been on the sea for half of his life. After taking a deep breath and calming down his agitated heart, a strange arc appeared on his cracked lips. As a powerful energy wave descended, a powerful sound turned into a destructive light wave that spread out. However, this is only the aspect of being a swordsman. As for the other aspects, you are far too lacking. The materialized evil energy waves continued to erupt, and the skeleton holding taiga of light could be clearly seen. The simple long blade in its hand rose and fell, and a powerful blade wind followed. Kacha, raising his head, he saw that the oncoming white slash was easily split into two. The saber wind was extremely awe-inspiring, leaving a mark in the void that would never dissipate. They could clearly see that the invincible blade wind had turned into thousands of cold lights, swallowing the golden lion Shiki, who was completely unaware. Armament haki hardening. Golden lion Shiki, who is aware of the rapid turn of the situation, used armament haki to strengthen his hardness for the first time, but he was still swallowed by the incoming hurricane. Pucci, any attack or defense has its bottom line, and the same is true for armament haki. Eroded by Kinsusano, Golden Lion Shiki's chest had several blood stains. The same is true for his whole body, which easily tore apart the defense of armament haki. Bastard, I will not let you go. The gorgeous golden hair was messy like grass, messy like a chicken's nest, and the fierce eyes were obviously dim. Golden Lion Shiki was no longer as arrogant as before. Even so, his mouth was still full of provocation. The Golden Lion Shiki had inherited everything from the male lion. The lion's ferocity and wildness, the king's might that refused to admit defeat, and the unwillingness to fight to the death were all vividly reflected in his body. Being able to enter the marine headquarters alone, it can be seen from the side how arrogant Golden Lion is. Of course, it is undeniable that he does have the capital to be arrogant, whether it is strength or reputation, he can despise everything. It's very difficult to control the power. That old guy said that he would kill you himself, so you should obediently be captured, so as not to suffer physical pain. Sighing helplessly, Wuchen tried to persuade him with kind words. Moreover, Kinsusano's power is really difficult to control. Dustless, who is usually used to rough, naturally does not use it well. The previous chop has already reserved a lot of power. What a joke. You want me to resign myself to death, and I'm going to resign myself to death? Who do you think you are? Hearing this, Golden Lion's wild and unruly laughter resounded through the sky, but there was a faint sense of sadness. Throughout his life, the number of strong enemies he faced was countless. Who would have thought that things were changeable, and now he is going to lose to a level 1 celestial dragon? It is a shame to be defeated by a celestial dragon. They are the most incompetent garbage of human beings, and if they are captured alive, it will be the biggest stain on their reputation. They would rather die than be captured alive. Moreover, you have seen lions that have been captured alive, and the fearless death is their true portrayal. The ferocious look in his eyes did not diminish, and the powerful roar was filled with unprecedented determination. Golden Lion Shiki was bleeding all over. Under the reflection of the setting sun, his momentum was awe-inspiring and domineering, like a peerless god of war. The arrogance in his bones made people feel ashamed and bow their heads, not daring to look at him. It's just that all this is ridiculous in the eyes of Dustless. The portrayal of lions is fearless death. Crazy talk. I don't know which majestic lion was put into the deep-sea prison by Sengoku and Garp a few years ago. Looking at the Golden Lion Shirji in a mocking manner, Wuchen taunted him and unceremoniously exposed his scars. You are strong enough, but your mouth is even more despicable. The sarcastic words directly made Golden Lion's mouth twitch. The lion was willing to give up his life to protect his territory, but he was indeed captured alive almost 7 or 8 years ago. Don't you understand? You are a man who has been captured alive. Chapter 435. Even with Golden Lion Shiki's thick old face, he couldn't help but blush, especially the sentence, "You are a man who has been caught alive before," which directly made Golden Lion Shiki suffer internal injuries. The corner of his dry and cracked mouth once again showed red blood stains, which was much more serious than giving him a stab. "Little brat, I will tear you to pieces and burn your bones to ashes." The roar of the sky turned into a substantial action. Golden Lion Shiki chose to make the first move. Maybe he still had a chance to win, otherwise, he would be directly killed by the vicious tongue attack. Both of his legs suddenly kicked forward forcefully, and 2 silvery white slashes whistled out. The sword slashes were sharp, and circles of ripples spread out in the space like a storm. "You are so old, but you don't know how to remember." Shaking his head, he looked at Golden Lion Shiki, who was covered in blood, and gave him a hopeless look. Dustless restrained his thoughts, and several hours passed quietly. Even if he was beaten by steel, he still needed to find the beautiful little slave girl at home to massage his legs and relax. "If I want to get rid of you quietly, it's easier for Sharingan." As soon as he finished speaking, Wuchen gave off a much more sinister and gloomy feeling. Mysterious ripples spread out from his body. His scarlet pupils were focused on the 2 slashes that were speeding towards him. His lips slightly opened, and the dry corner of his mouth slightly opened. The sky was suddenly shrouded in darkness, and there was a blazing heat for no reason. Amaterasu. Raising his head to take a look, he saw that the 2 chilling slashes that were whizzing over had been swallowed by the dark black flames. Layers upon layers of them were tightly wrapped, and they were swiftly being eroded. In less than a blink of an eye, the silver-white light weakened until it finally disappeared. Black flame, countless strange abilities. It's no different from the legendary devil fruit tree. Any ability can be used at will. Cautiously looking at the black flame, Golden Lion Shiki clenched his fists, and his face was full of unwillingness. How could this kid get all the good things in the world by himself? It's really enviable. With a face full of jealousy, Golden Lion Shiki did not hide the covetous flame in his eyes. With Dustless's level of endless ability, he naturally had the idea of taking it for himself. "You are right, my ability is absolutely unparalleled in the world." Hearing this, Dustless's face was filled with pride, and thousands of abilities gathered in one body. Even if it was a person who died, he could revive the other party with the ability to turn decay into magic. A little brat is a little brat. As long as an adult praises you, you will immediately get carried away. Seeing this, Golden Lion Shiki's face outlined a sinister smile, and at the same time, his thumb without a trace, a long spear that had been lurking on the ground for a long time rose from the ground, and it went straight to Dustless. Poochie, Dustless did not expect the Golden Lion Shiki to suddenly attack. Caught off guard, Dustless's left arm was directly scratched, leaving behind a scarlet mark. Blood flowed endlessly, but it was not a big deal. "Funny, you think you can take my life by diverting the attention in such a vulgar way?" Raising his head, Wu Chen had a sneer on his face. This kind of injury was not worth mentioning to him. However, there was not a single person in sight. The Golden Lion Shiki had also disappeared without a trace. "I never thought that kind of trick could take your life, so I will do it myself." A ghostly voice sounded behind him. Dustless was stunned, and he looked back leisurely, but what was reflected in his eyes was a cold light sweeping down, and it was too late to retreat. Poochie. The cold light falling down easily cut off Dustless's arm, and the piercing pain and feeling of powerlessness spread through his limbs like a tide. Bastard. The eternal Manjikyu Sharingan rotated sharply, and the blood-red ruby-like eyes reflected a black irregular flame. When he was about to launch Amaterasu to swallow him whole, Golden Lion Shiki's disdainful voice came in advance. "It's still that weird black flame. Don't underestimate my observation haki. It's a high-level observation haki. It's even rarer than Haoshiku haki. If I get hit by it again, it's simply unforgivable," Golden Lion Shiki said hoarsely. A sly smile swept across his mouth, and his finger hooked again. On the ground, a sharp whistling sound rose from the ground, and it once again stabbed towards Dustless. Poochie, the sharp spear went straight into Dustless's body. Looking up, Dustless's whole body was pierced by the spear made of steel, and there was a bloody hole in his chest. Did you prepare all this in advance? His eyes dimmed, and Dustless, who was aware of the rapid loss of vitality, was pale, and his whole body was sweating involuntarily, and he was gasping and trembling. As you can see, I did prepare it in advance. I am a float fruit user. Before you came to the Marine headquarters, I set up a mechanism in advance, but I didn't expect it to be used. Speaking of this, Golden Lion Shiki's eyes showed the color of recollection, and immediately said, after wandering the world for many years, this old man has long practiced a heart that is prepared for a rainy day. You have this kind of end is not accidental, but inevitable. From the moment I fought with you, I met you like this, because I have designed everything in advance. Golden Lion Haruke smiled proudly, and at the same time, his hand fell, and a cold light flashed through the void. Dustless's body was split into 4, and burst into blood mist. Next is your Marine headquarters. Even if there are many people, you can't save Marlindo from destruction. The shriveled dark hand spread out, aiming at Marlindo below the void, and just as he was about to launch his ability, a harsh teasing spread out, and Golden Lion Shiki heard it clearly. It's unbelievable that I can see such a wonderful performance in the world of Tsukimi. Unfortunately, a dream is a dream, and an illusion will always be an illusion. As Dustless's voice fell, the world in front of him suddenly changed rapidly. Dustless, who had been torn apart, returned to his original position. Instead, it was Golden Lion Shiki himself who was panting like a dead dog. What kind of F***king sorcery did you use? Chapter 436. Gold Lion Shiji's face was ashen. His gloomy eyes spread out and took in all the movements around him. His previously smug expression turned gloomy, and his passionate heart fell to the bottom. A basin of cold water fell and extinguished Gold Lion Shiji's high and inflated confidence. He didn't know when, but he and Dustless had landed on the ground of the Marine headquarters, and the most terrible thing was that countless muzzles and swords were pointed at him. Witchcraft? To some extent, it is indeed witchcraft. Hearing this, Dustless didn't comment. The scene in front of him was similar to when he invaded Naruto's world with glinting fruit. These indigenous people simply couldn't understand the ability outside this world. All in all, it's completely over. Casually glancing at Golden Lion Shiki, Dustless simply flicked his sleeves and left, regardless of the reaction of these Marines. The unique clothing logo of celestial dragons on his back and chest has already invisibly explained everything. The Marines were afraid of celestial dragons, so naturally, they didn't dare to ask more questions. They hoped that Dustless, the god of disaster, would quickly get out of here. Of course, Dustless also followed their thoughts and left after cleaning up Golden Lion. The Marines didn't like him, and he also didn't like these Marines. Holy Land Mariehua is also the headquarters of the world government. Dustless was enjoying his afternoon tea. He looked relaxed as he laid on the couch and basked in the sun. Boa Hancock, who was wearing a black maid outfit, was waiting for him carefully. Her soft little hand rhythmically patted Dustless's calf, and the strength was very accurate. Obviously, it was not the first time she did this kind of thing. Even though Dustless was gentle and approachable, and usually didn't have the arrogance of celestial dragons, Boa Hancock still had a deep fear in her bones. Go down. Lazily closing his eyes, Dustless handed the delicate cup in his hand to Boa Hancock. Although his indifferent voice was soft, she didn't have the slightest resistance. She blinked her bright eyes and glanced at Dustless. Then, she tactfully retreated quietly. After a while, Dustless opened his eyes again and looked indifferently at the void in front of him. Mariehua under the swirling clouds was beautiful, like a fairyland on earth, and the air was exceptionally fresh and natural. You're living such a comfortable life. You're drinking tea all day, and your maids are waiting on you. The life of a second-generation heir has caused you to fall quite a bit. I'm so envious of you. In his mind, a light voice spread out. The pleasant sound of nature made people fall silent and unable to extricate themselves. In Dustless's memories, only the system Ling had such a mysterious and ethereal voice. About 16 or 17 years have passed, before Dustless could react. The world before his eyes suddenly changed. The deep blue starry sky gave him a dreamy feeling. The surrounding space also changed rapidly. There were mountains and rivers on one side. At a glance, it was a lush green grassland. "You're doing this, forget it." The corner of his mouth twitched without a trace. Dustless was speechless. He stared at the young black-haired girl who suddenly flashed in front of him. His eyes suddenly turned to the pavilion in the distance. Regardless of Ling, he walked straight over with a smile on his face. "Once every 5 years, you can now draw 3 times with the number of times you have accumulated." The void in front of him splashed a faint ripple, and Ling came out of thin air. Her deep eyes stared at Dustless. The looming figures in the pavilion in the distance were Dustless's little wife and her former subordinates. "If you didn't mention it, I would have forgotten about this." Hearing this, Dustless remembered that the reason why he was able to rise when he was young was because of the system's lottery. Without the system's unexpected appearance to break Dustless's cursed fate, he might have died. "Let's start now." After taking a deep breath, Dustless looked forward to it and said calmly. The abilities in the system came from all the major planes in the vast universe. There were countless abilities, and they contained all kinds of strange existences. Even though Dustless was now at the peak, some special abilities were still very useful to him. "If that's the case, then let's start now." In front of Dustless, an unprecedented giant turntable appeared again. On it were recorded all kinds of abilities that had never been heard of before. The number was so densely packed that even Dustless was dazzled. Nodding slightly at Ling, Dustless signaled Ling, to get ready. Ka ka ka, the giant turntable spun gently, from slow to fast, and from fast to slow again. This scene repeated for a few minutes before it stopped. The item that the javelin was pointing at also stunned Dustless. The shape was quite simple. It was a golden sun ball. It was extremely dazzling. At first glance, one could tell that it was not an ordinary item. However, the following 4 words attracted Dustless's attention. Gate of Babylon? Isn't this the ability of the nouveau riche? Thinking of the arrogant blonde man in a certain world, Dustless was quite surprised. He still remembered that Brother Shan used this ability to defeat the other heroic spirits. But, what use does this thing have for me? Rolling his eyes, Dustless stared at Ling, who had an indifferent expression on her face. This ability was not bad, but it was useless to the current Dustless. She even said that this so-called Gate of Babylon was completely useless in Dustless's hands. Of course, he might need it to pay the bill. "It suits you very well. Your chakra and glint fruit are both golden. Now that you have the Gate of Babylon as a foil, it must be even more dazzling than the glint in your memory." Blinking her intelligent black eyes, Ling said softly with a hidden meaning. "If you want to call me a nouveau riche, just say it. There's no need to beat around the bush." With his face twitching, Dustless said to Ling, in a bad mood. At the same time, he waved his hand and signaled Ling, to continue the lottery. Although this so-called Gate of Babylon was very different from the ability Dustless imagined, it was still a decent ability. Just as Ling said, at least in the future, Dustless's ability would be more dazzling than Glint's. Chapter 437. The mysterious energy invaded his mind. Dustless was stunned for a moment, then chakra surged. Just as he was about to shake this unknown energy out of his mind, Ling gave him a calm look and stopped Dustless's action. Frowning, squinting his eyes, and carefully feeling the source of the mysterious energy, Dustless's mouth raised into an interested smile. After a while, he said in surprise, "I thought this Gate of Babylon was useless. Now it seems that I underestimated its ability." With a wave of his hand, countless ripples splashed out in the space behind Dustless. The blue void was dyed golden, and countless divine weapons floated in the void behind Dustless. That's natural. Any ability varies from person to person. The strong will strengthen themselves, and the weak will weaken themselves. Her eyes, which were as calm as autumn water, were filled with extraordinary splendor. With a little surprise, she raised her head and stared at the void behind Wu Qin. All kinds of sharp divine weapons were clearly visible. Obviously, Dustless could skillfully control the Gate of Babylon just after obtaining it. Let's continue, maybe we can get something good. Aware of the extraordinariness and power of the Gate of Babylon, Dustless also put away his dissatisfaction. The dazzling golden void behind him returned to blue, and the sky returned to tranquility. The huge circular turntable slowly turned again. Every time the javelin pointed at an item, Dustless's heart was like a monkey on a horse, and he couldn't help but drool. The skills in the system, even the most vulgar ones, were extraordinary. Caw. About a few minutes later, the javelin stopped again. This time, it pointed at something that Dustless was quite familiar with. It was a silver devil fruit. A devil fruit that can shine? Seeing such a strange devil fruit, Dustless couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. The whole devil fruit was filled with some kind of mysterious light energy. If it wasn't for the description below, Dustless might not be able to recognize the true appearance of the devil fruit at a glance. Looking carefully, he could vaguely see that under the surface of light, there was a unique pattern of the devil fruit. Fruit of light. What are the abilities of this fruit? Frowning, Dustless asked. There were many types of devil fruits, and there were countless unknown abilities. It was normal that he had not heard of the light fruit's ability. You'll have to figure it out yourself. But there's one thing that's worth confirming. Er's jade-like hand gently pointed at the void, and a glowing silver devil fruit fell into her hand. It was the fruit of light that she had previously drawn. Since it's an ultimate devil fruit, it naturally has the ability to transcend. After saying that, the glowing silver fruit in his hand, the fruit of light, floated into Dustless's hand. To be called an ultimate devil fruit, it is indeed not an ordinary item. Gently nodding, Dustless was noncommittal. Since it was the ultimate devil fruit, it was as bizarre as the surgeon fruit. It must have some kind of heaven-defying ability and incredible special effect. Especially the fruit of light in front of him. It gave off a feeling of vicissitudes and simplicity. It was full of vitality, but it also gave off a feeling of destruction. It's definitely much stronger than my glint fruit. With a sigh, Dustless couldn't help but be speechless. For a moment, he regretted eating the glint fruit. Now he has two ultimate devil fruits in his hand, and their ability is definitely not worse than the glint fruit. Take the fruit of light in front of him as an example. It obviously contains the ability of light. The glint fruit also turns the physique into light, but there is no ultimate devil fruit. Divine power. There was a ripple in the void, and Dustless sucked the fruit of light into a different space. 3 lottery draws. 2 have been carried out just now, there's 1 left, continue. After obtaining 2 good things in succession, Dustless was also full of hope for the last draw. His eyes were as bright as stars, circling around the giant lottery turntable, and his eyes flashed with emotion from time to time. He used to live in the 3-dimensional era and had all kinds of heaven-defying abilities. This humble lottery turntable also exists, and it contains thousands of abilities in the universe. This is the last time. Glancing at Wu Qin, Er's white and tender hand tapped lightly on the giant turntable that had stopped moving. Then, it began to rotate again with a click sound. The dazzling and overwhelming variety of abilities slid across the pole one by one, making Wu Qin feel uncomfortable and tangled. After a few minutes of torment, the turntable stopped this time, and the ability of the pole made Dustless instantly petrified, motionless like a sculpture. Tricolor hockey. I can learn this ability by myself, why do I need to draw a lottery? The corner of his mouth twitched fiercely, Dustless roared with a red face, and his spittle flew everywhere. He was extremely dissatisfied with this lottery. This native ability, he has no problem learning it by himself. The so-called tricolor hockey is armament hockey, observation haki, and haoshiku haki. It's no wonder that Dustless found it so difficult to accept. In addition to haoshiku haki, which can be obtained through inheritance, armament haki and observation haki can be obtained through cultivation. It's a mass ability that everyone has. There are exceptions to everything. I can tell you clearly that you don't have haoshiku haki in your body. Don't always think that you are a special and unique existence. Glancing at Dustless faintly, ignoring his dissatisfaction, Heir explained softly, "You come from a different world, and naturally, you don't have the possibility of inheriting haoshiku haki, and people who awaken haoshiku get it after a lot of tempering. So, you don't have this kind of king's qualification." Hearing this, Dustless's mouth squirmed, and when he was about to quibble, he was speechless. After the dissatisfaction in his expression disappeared, Wuchen did not care about this problem. He was content with what he had. His ability was enough to overlook the whole world. Moreover, as Ling said, only absolute oppression and tempering can awaken haoshiku. In this world, people who can bring such a threat to Dustless are rare. To some extent, Dustless naturally does not have the possibility of awakening haoshiku. Chapter 438. Looking at the peerless beauty with clear eyes, Dustless's face was filled with doubts. As Ling said, not to mention that there is no haoshiku haki in his body, even if there is such a power, there are very few people who can awaken Dustless. Since you can't awaken haoshiku, what's the use of it? With his eyes wide open, Dustless asked with more dissatisfaction, and the anger in his tone was not concealed. It's useless if you can't awaken haoshiku. It's not difficult to awaken, but are you sure you want to awaken haoshiku haki? The dark ink-like eyes flashed with a fleeting playfulness. Looking at Dustless's face, Heir's face was as usual, but there was a hint of teasing in her voice. "This is not nonsense, I can only make up for my devastated heart if I can awaken it." Hearing this, Dustless replied decisively without thinking. If he can't awaken haoshiku, the third draw is meaningless. Kenbenshoku and haoshiku are skills common to all human beings. That's what I'm waiting for. The sly smile on the delicate little face turned into a substantial action, and the vast and majestic breath gushed out, and the void behind her exploded into pieces in an instant. The supreme meaning emitted from the tender body, even if the void was broken, it did not dare to heal. It has been pulling the surrounding space and gradually enlarging the cracks. Heir simply locked her momentum on Dustless and did not spread it. Otherwise, what would happen is self-evident. The extremely oppressive majestic breath pressed on Dustless, and Heir suddenly attacked. Dustless, who was unaware of it, was forced to step back again and again. His elegant and handsome face was pale, and his body was shaking and almost fell to the ground. There is always someone better than you, and there is always a mountain higher than the other. Dustless now understands what it means. The thin Heir in front of him gave Dustless more pressure than any of his previous opponents. Even the life and death enemy of Naruto's world, Marayuki, was like a lonely boat in the sea, not worth mentioning when compared to Heir in this state. Upon closer inspection, the surface of Dustless's skin showed signs of cracking due to the exaggerated deterrence. Scarlet blood seeped out of his skin along the blood vessels. So strong. This should be under the condition that she's deliberately preserving her strength. Dustless clenched his fists and gritted his teeth as the veins on his face bulged. His nostrils were panting uncontrollably. The unprecedented suppression restricted Dustless's movements. His body was suppressed by the invisible 1,000-gold boulder, making it difficult for him to move. Under the crushing pressure of this aura, Dustless felt weak and lost. A feeling of insignificance that he had never felt before invaded his mind, and a myriad of emotions surged in his heart. How could Dustless be willing to be crushed so easily like an ant after spending half his life scheming and scheming? His ferocious eyes turned blood red, revealing an unwilling expression. Unwilling to go with the flow, he could only go against it. Dustless had experienced too much in his life. He would never give up so easily. He tried to stand up. His fearless eyes were emotionless as he looked straight at Heir. His expression was calm and fearless. Seeing Dustless resist, the vigorous aura became even more domineering. Dustless stood up and bent his body again. His whole body trembled. Even so, Dustless persisted in sweating, unwilling to give up. Going back and forth, the cycle took close to half an hour. You want me to give up despair? This kind of aura is still too weak. At least 10 times stronger. Curling his lips, Dustless's face revealed a ferocious smile. His eyes were as bright as the stars. At first, he was not used to it, but as time passed, he gradually got used to it. Yin. At the same time, the power hidden in his body finally erupted after being suppressed for a long time. A roar that soared into the sky shook the heavens and the earth. It was like a divine dragon that had awakened in ancient times. The loud dragon roar was accompanied by a powerful wave of air that spread across the endless sky. It happened suddenly, and Ling did not realize that the hidden Haoshiku Haki in Dustless's body had suddenly awakened. Her strength was unprecedented and naturally there was no big problem. However, she was wearing a simple dress today. A strong storm blew and she was blown high. This little girl looks sacred and untouchable, but she is actually purple. There was a strange light in the depths of his eyes. Dustless was secretly speechless. The more noble a person is, the more they tend to have a shocking side. Bastard, your Haoshiku Haki is used to lift other people's skirts? The white delicate smile was replaced by shame and anger, and she stared at Dustless fiercely. Her delicate body trembled, and her small hands were clenched into fists. She couldn't wait to kill Dustless with one punch. Lift your skirt? Hearing this, Dustless just glanced at the angry Ling, and the white and tender skin in his mind was thrown away. He said seriously and indifferently, your thin arms and legs, sorry, I am not interested in them for the time being. I will wait until you grow up. When the voice fell, Dustless turned and left, leaving Ling, a simple back. Could it be that he really didn't see it? Her face was full of suspicion, and Ling, was deeply skeptical about this. Fortunately, I am witty enough, or I will definitely be beaten by her. Turning her head, Wu Chen's indifferent face was replaced by cold sweat. It was not that she was greedy for life and afraid of death, but she couldn't avoid being destroyed by Ling, that little girl. Moreover, it was the most annoying and inhumane kind. Recalling the quiet figure of the beautiful country in his mind, Dustless's thoughts were in a trance, and he quickened his pace and swept straight towards the pavilion in front of him. Just at the same time, an unexpected enchanting figure suddenly appeared, and the space was split in a square, and the peerless beauty gracefully stepped out of it. Oh, long time no see. His cheeks were filled with a gentle and sunny smile. Although he was a little surprised, Dustless still politely greeted her. No matter what, the person in front of him had a relationship with himself, even if it was forced. The standing figure was as cold as an iceberg, and her arm was gently raised, and then she threw out a cold flash. Kill Grey Bone. Chapter 439. There is no doubt that the person in front of him is Otsutsuki Kagaya, who was locked in the small black house by Dustless. Bastard, old witch, no matter what, I'm still your lover. How can you kill me so ruthlessly? Seeing how ruthless Huey was, Wu Chen cursed. There is no doubt about the power of Grey Bone. It is condensed by the power of yin and yang. Any creature that is stabbed will collapse and annihilate, and finally disappear with the wind. Any object that touches it will be annihilated. Golden light swept all over his body, and he easily used elementalization to avoid the oncoming bone spurs. You want to die. Hearing this, Kagaya's killing intent was even more piercing, and the slender silver hair behind her danced with the wind, turning into thousands of cold lights. She was extremely ruthless. Obviously, she has a bitter hatred for Dustless who took her virginity. Countless strands of hair that were as hard as steel needles shot over with boundless power, but just like before, they were easily ignored by Wu Chen's elemental transformation. He stood there motionlessly as if nothing had happened. No matter what method Huey used, she couldn't shake Wu Chen. Kagaya, who doesn't know how to use armament hockey, will never be able to touch Dustless. After so long, I still have such a deep hatred. With a helpless sigh, Dustless turned into shining particles and fell beside Kaguya. In order to prevent her from taking the opportunity to attack, his body always maintained the state of elementalization. Frankly speaking, Wuchen didn't have any grudges against Huiji. However, this woman was always as cold as an iceberg. Her face was as beautiful as a flower in jade, and she always kept people away. Let me out. Otherwise, you're little lovers, humph. Glancing at Dustless, Huey warned with a murderous look in her eyes. Hearing this, Dustless just smiled. This was the world within the system. What Huiji said didn't count. The real ruler was Ling, whose strength could easily suppress Huiji. Huiji had rebelled before, but she was easily suppressed. If you have the ability, you can go out by yourself. He caressed Huey's hair carelessly and smelled her unique fragrance. His lips curled into an evil smile as he said, "If you can make me, I will let you out for some fresh air." Dustless was obviously fooling her. So far, she didn't have the means to release the girls. Dustless's voice drifted to Huey's ears. His voice was as soft as a mosquito's. At the same time, he didn't forget to blow hot air into Huey's ears. Despicable. Sensing the abnormality in her ears, Kaguya's anger burned away her rationality. She waved her hand and shot out a blazing hurricane, but it still couldn't touch Dustless's body. It floated past his body. Boom boom boom, the deafening explosion shook the entire system world. Along with the explosion, several mountains were shattered, and smoke and dust hundreds of feet high drifted into the depths of the horizon. The remaining energy waves and dust particles mixed together, turning into a violent sandstorm. It swallowed everything within a radius of hundreds of kilometers. Her strength actually increased instead of decreasing. Dustless took a deep breath and said with an unnatural expression. It had been quite some time since he came here. His improvement was limited. On the contrary, Huey in the system world had improved at a rapid pace. I'm not someone like you who is tainted by the secular world. I have a pure heart and few desires. I don't have those dirty thoughts like you. My improvement speed is naturally not something a brat like you can compare to. Glancing at Dustless beside her, Huey's murderous intent was awe-inspiring. She said coldly, "When I break out of this prison, it will be the time for you to be torn into pieces. Remember this, brat." From the beginning to the end, Dustless's expression didn't change. Staring at Huey's graceful figure, he suddenly remembered the scene when he had sex with Huey in the past. Brat? The corner of his mouth raised, revealing a teasing smile. Dustless curled his lips and said, "Old witch who doesn't mean what she says, the brat you are talking about rode you that day, 80 gods airstrike." Huey's roar suddenly fell. The sky was filled with fist shadows. The air exploded and the void trembled violently. In the azure space, uncontrollable dense cracks could be seen clearly. The terrifying fists all fell on Dustless's body. The scene was the same as before. She couldn't catch Dustless's body. "If I let you out, you will kill me. If that's the case, I can't let you out of the cage. If you can turn over a new leaf and don't have the desire to conquer the world, I don't mind letting you out for some fresh air." Revealing a rueful expression, Dustless's figure gradually faded, turning into a wisp of smoke and slowly dissipating. If Huey could really abandon the past grudges, he was still willing to face it calmly. Wishful thinking. Glancing emotionlessly at Dustless who was about to collapse, Huey sneered. There was no one worthy of her repenting, especially a brat. It was even more unworthy. And she didn't think that she had done anything wrong. She subconsciously touched the root of her ears, and a dry heat suddenly burned in her heart. Her heart of Tao that had been calm for many years splashed a faint ripple. Just a brat, the dark red lips opened slightly, and Huey's cold voice softened a little. It was much more human. Splat. Huey, who was in a trance, was stunned. Her left face was suddenly wrapped in water stains, and there was a blazing wave of air. She turned her head angrily, and what she saw was Dustless, who should have disappeared. The taste is not bad, but it's a little cold. Touching his chin, Dustless carefully tasted the residual mellow fragrance on the tip of his tongue and said regretfully. A giant black sphere suddenly grew bigger, swallowing everything around it. A new world was born in the sphere. The furious Huey saw Dustless so smug, and naturally, she didn't show any mercy. You don't know how to be romantic. When you really repent and turn over a new leaf, I will naturally let you out. She shook her head and then sighed. Her whole body collapsed again, and there was no trace of her aura. Obviously, she really left the system world. It was 100% certain that the probability of Huey turning over a new leaf was 0. Chapter 440. Time flew by like a white steed, and in the blink of an eye, another 3 days passed by silently. Next to the smooth transparent stone table, Dustless calmly read today's morning newspaper. His hair was wet, and he was wearing white cotton pajamas. In the room, the lights were bright, and 2 figures could be clearly seen. Boa Hancock, dressed as a maid, stood gracefully beside Dustless. The time they spent together was short, and she also understood what kind of person Dustless was. He was no different from a normal human being. He didn't have the concept of being a celestial dragon slave, and he would often show a sincere smile to her. It's a bit absurd to say it, but that's the reality. You are too casual, you have to figure out where this place is. Her watery eyes were filled with anger as she stared at the figure resting on the sofa opposite her, her fists clenched. On the sofa, a tall man with a hat on his head leisurely crossed his legs, carrying a long black sword on his back. Apparently, he had fallen asleep, and you could hear a slight snoring sound, very casual. The long black sword on his back was not an ordinary weapon, it was shining, and it exuded an awe-inspiring sword intent, giving people a feeling of invincibility. It was one of the sharpest swords in the world, the Black Sword Knight. There was no doubt that this person was Hawkeye Myhawk. Hawkeye directly ignored Boa Hancock's angry rebuke and continued to sleep, ignoring her dissatisfaction as if it didn't exist. This is interesting. The hot tea that was delivered to the corner of his mouth suddenly stopped. Dustless was quickly attracted by the headlines in the newspaper. His eyes confirmed the contents of the newspaper several times, and after confirming that he wasn't dizzy, he said, I didn't expect that man to be captured by the Marine headquarters. 100 Beast Kaido, one of the famous pirates in the New World, was notorious for his ferocity. In the future, he would rule the world like an emperor and overlook the second half of the Grand Line, as one of the 4 emperors. There was no doubt that his reputation and strength were at the top of the pyramid. Now that he was captured alive, Dustless's brain really short-circuited. This is not a rare thing. Kaido was captured by the Marines several times before, and the final result was that he escaped, and the prison where he was imprisoned was sunk. Hawkeye lifted the hat on his face and smelled a faint fragrance. He opened his eyes and picked up the tea on the transparent stone table and drank it. The most ridiculous thing is that the Marine once threatened to publicly execute him, but he still escaped. I heard that the Marine Fleet Admiral was scolded by the highest power of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Hawkeye casually tapped his foot on the table. He was caught by the Marines 3 or 4 times, but he was still able to escape easily. He can no longer be described as powerful. This time that man is facing the danger of being executed again. I don't know if he can perform a miracle. Dropping the newspaper in his hand, Dustless said. You can clearly see the eye-catching words under the newspaper. The great pirate, 100 Beast, Kaido, will be executed in Roguetown in 3 days. Hearing this, Hawkeye opened his eyes again, revealing a wise look. He analyzed. In the war a few days ago, the world government and the Marine headquarters lost face. I am afraid that they want to save the face of the government by executing Kaido. The war a few days ago shook the whole world. The Marine, the government, and the pirates suffered extremely heavy casualties. Whitebeard and the other pirates escaped from the encirclement and escaped the pursuit of the world government and the Marine. Or simply swaggered away, because the entire Marine headquarters and the world government were hit hard, and they couldn't stop their escape. Kaido is not Whitebeard, even if he is executed, it won't change much of their reputation. Staring at Kaido, who was tied up like a dumpling in the newspaper, Hawkeye was puzzled. In his words, there was deep confusion and questions. Kaido is a very powerful pirate, but compared to the legendary Whitebeard, his identity, status, and strength are not a little bit worse. A group of kids playing house, it's boring enough, let them be. Shaking his head and smiling, Dustless didn't bother about the secret. The Gorosei's thinking is jumping, ordinary people can't guess what they are thinking, not to mention this matter has nothing to do with him. Continuing to browse the other information in the newspaper, other banners immediately attracted Dustless's attention. The content of the newspaper is quite simple, just a Marine soldier in uniform, about 30 years old, carrying a Marine special long gun in his hand, wearing dark sunglasses. The content of the introduction of this ordinary soldier is also extremely simple, Marine excellent soldier, Virgo. Hancock, what is the recent movement of the Don Quixote pirates? Putting down the tea in his hand, Dustless suddenly asked, his eyes flashing with a hidden light. The Don Quixote pirates have been very low-key recently, almost fading out of people's sight, and their traces are hard to find. According to reliable news, they seem to be carrying out some kind of transaction. Marine's Vice Admiral Tsuru is tracking their traces. Although there are doubts, Hancock said seriously, this is also one of the tasks Dustless gave her. Transaction? Hearing this, Dustless frowned and then sneered. Since coming to this world, he began to pay attention to the Don Quixote pirates. Thinking of the transaction items, his breathing became heavy for a while. When he was about to instruct Hawkeye to rob them directly, the sound of leather shoes walking sounded first. In less than a few seconds, several black-clothed people came into Dustless's sight. These people are the confidants of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. It seems that you have all sent it. Staring at the documents of these black-clothed people, Dustless was relieved. This was also one of the conditions of the transaction between him and the bald Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars. Chapter 441. His eyes narrowed slightly as he stared at the tall man in black in front of him with a grin on his face. Dustless needs the confidential documents in the hands of these men. Louis South, Saint, this is what you need. The man in black with sunglasses said respectfully. The celestial dragons are not easy to offend. Even if he is a confidant of the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, he does not dare to violate the rules. In particular, the man in front of him is the type that is extremely difficult to provoke. Maybe the slightest offense will cause him to be killed on the spot. Celestial dragons are temperamental. They don't need a reason to kill, it depends entirely on their mood. Nodding slightly, then waving his hand, Dustless motioned for them to get out. Goodbye. Seeing that Dustless was so easy to talk to, the group of men in black also breathed a sigh of relief. Obviously, they were not used to staying with celestial dragons. They put down the confidential documents in their hands and left. To some extent, celestial dragons are more dangerous than pirates. Gotcha. He pulled open the cover wrapped outside, revealing a thick and simple book, which looked mysterious and full of vicissitudes of history. He flipped open a yellow book cover and saw a devil's fruit. Devil fruit illustration? What's the use of this kind of thing? Frowning, staring at the devil fruit illustration in the book, Hawkeye came over and asked in surprise. This kind of thing, there are countless in the outside world, and it's inconceivable that it's related to confidential documents. However, as Dustless turned the next page, Hawkeye's eyes instantly solidified. He had never seen the devil fruit before. It was strangely shaped, but its origin and history were clearly marked on it. There was even an introduction of its ability. The most detailed part was that it stated who had used it before, as well as its past achievements. The content of this devil fruit illustration seems to be more detailed. Lowering his head, Hawkeye's face was full of contemplation, and he seemed to guess something, and his expression suddenly stiffened. There is no need to be surprised. It is indeed as you imagined. The devil fruit illustration circulating in the outside world is just a miniature of it. Now this is the original state of the devil fruit illustration. Regardless of Hawkeye's expression, Dustless just flipped through the devil fruit illustration. These detailed records were not available in the devil fruit illustration handbook in the outside world. Moreover, this strange devil fruit in front of him was not available in the devil fruit illustration handbook in the outside world. Don't underestimate the world government. After more than 800 years, their various systems have long been perfected. They have their own intelligence system, secretly collecting devil fruit abilities from all over the world, and then writing unknown illustrations. The set of devil fruit illustrations in the outside world were also made by them. They were just used to fool the world. Of course, the contents recorded in them are still true. Seeing Hawkeye's puzzled face, Dustless explained faintly, the real devil fruit illustration has actually been kept in the hands of the government. Hearing this, Hawkeye's face slightly changed. The devil fruit illustration handbook in front of him was obviously different from the ones sold in the outside world. There were all kinds of records, including the ability, origin, the characters used, battle records, and even how the host died. The most difficult thing for Hawkeye to accept was that from the ancient handwriting, it was estimated to be hundreds of years old. Dustless did not care about Hawkeye and began to read the devil fruit illustration handbook information, hoping to get the ability of the 2 devil fruits stored in the Kamui space. God does not disappoint people. After about half an hour, Dustless finally found the ability of the light fruit. Unlimited regeneration, healing, and the ability to control light? Is that all? With disappointment in his eyes, Dustless was quite dissatisfied. After all, it was the ultimate devil fruit. Although the ability was still very powerful, there was still a gap between his expectations. This ability is enough to be called the ability of God. How can there be such a magical ability in the world? Hawkeye, who came over, was in disbelief, staring at the light fruit. In contrast to the disappointed Dustless, his tone was full of astonishment. Unlimited regeneration, this ability is indeed no different from God's. The devil fruit illustration handbook sold in the outside world has never recorded a devil fruit like the light fruit. That's right. Hearing this, Dustless smiled. After all, it's just a devil fruit. It can achieve unlimited regeneration, which is beyond human understanding of devil fruit. In particular, it also has the ability to control light, which should coincide with Dustless's glint fruit. In his mind, he suddenly remembered another ultimate devil fruit in the Kamui space. Dustless's heart spontaneously gave birth to expectations. His celestial dragon's cheapskate father exploded because of this unknown devil fruit. How strange its ability is can be imagined. After the time it took for an incense stick to burn, Wu Chen's face fell. It's not there. Dustless, who flipped through for a long time, did not find the introduction of another devil fruit. His face was gloomy, looking at the heavy ancient book, his eyes flashed with coldness. Is it possible that the 5 old men deliberately tore it? His eyes sharpened, trying to find the tear marks, but still found nothing. For a time, Dustless also fell into deep doubts. The devil fruit that is enough to explode the strength of a marine admiral is indeed extremely strange. After hesitating for a long time, Dustless chose Hancock to immediately find someone to copy it. There are many unheard of devil fruits that are completely beyond imagination. It is necessary to record them in detail. Some of them are even stronger than tremor fruit and dark fruit. No, maybe that strange fruit doesn't belong to the scope of devil fruit itself. Dustless secretly guessed that the devil fruit only has the form of a devil fruit. Whether its appearance, structure, or other aspects, it is different from the devil fruit. Stable update, full of integrity. Chapter 442. After Hancock and Hawkeye were sent away by Dustless, in the dead room, Dustless was alone, integrated with the darkness, and his breath completely disappeared. Without using eyes to deliberately look, it is impossible to detect the existence of Dustless. Hancock was naturally sent by Dustless to copy the Devil Fruit illustration book, which recorded countless devil fruits with heaven-defying abilities. Naturally, the Gorosei, 5 elder stars, could not be taken advantage of. As for Hawkeye, he was sent by Dustless to grab the surgeon fruit. Dustless is still quite envious of the surgeon fruit. As for the so-called Mariewa national treasure, Dustless is not interested in it. He doesn't know what the specific content is, and it's difficult to grab it. Cleverness makes a mistake, I'm too persistent. With a self-deprecating smile, Dustless sighed silently. Recalling the surface engraved with flowers and trees, as well as the dragon riding the clouds, the endless doubts in Dustless's heart disappeared. The moment he saw the mysterious ultimate devil fruit, the preconceived idea of the devil fruit has been deeply rooted. After all, only the devil fruit in the world has such a form. It also shows that no matter what you do, you can't rely on pure perceptual speculation, but under absolute reason, you can make a correct and reasonable explanation based on your own subjective analysis. The world is impermanent. Even if Dustless knows what will happen in the future, fate is also tortuous and changeable, and it is impossible for all to develop according to the original historical trajectory. But, everything is interesting because it can escape from control. If it is exactly the same as what I expect, then what fun is there? Opening the window, Dustless went straight to the balcony, drank the dark red liquid in the delicate transparent cup, stared at the dark night sky in the distance, and the corners of his mouth evoked a smile. It is because there are always unexpected accidents that the world is colorful and full of vitality. A gentle night breeze blew from the front, causing Wu Chen's disheveled hair to flutter in the wind. Under the dark night sky, that pair of sparkling eyes were especially conspicuous, like a resplendent pearl, attracting the attention of others. When Dustless was admiring the moon, suddenly, the void in the distance strangely swept aflame. Boom boom boom, in the dark night sky, a harsh roar resounded through the sky, and an unprecedented hot cloud of fire rose strangely over Mariewa. The violent vibration spread out, and the whole Mariewa trembled violently and became a mess. What's the situation? Could it be that it was invaded again? It's also the headquarters of the world government. It's too outrageous to be invaded one after another. Staring at the giant fireball in the distance, Dustless was speechless for a while, and then there was a gloating smile on the corner of his mouth. With such a big movement, the Gorosei was inevitably condemned by the celestial dragons. This so-called headquarters of the world government, the defense was too fragile, and it was invaded every few days, especially the vibration this time was more exaggerated than the last tiger invasion. The majestic perception spread out, and the center of the explosion was quickly exposed to Dustless's eyes. It turned out to be the office of the Gorosei. No one should be stupid enough to talk about flowers and the moon with the Gorosei. The gloating smile froze, Dustless frowned, and he was puzzled as he muttered to himself. The center of the explosion was the place where the Gorosei usually worked. Master Dustless. An eager voice suddenly sounded. In this world, Dustless's name was Royce South, Saint. Only people from the previous world could call out Dustless's previous name. Looking at the place where the sound came from, a strange white figure of a person or a monster with half of his body buried in the ground entered Dustless's sight. Looking up, it was White Zetsu. The only difference was that the white Zetsu in front of him was created by Dustless through yin-yang escape. What's the matter, White Zetsu? I didn't send you to monitor the movements of the Gorosei, you. Is it possible that the previous explosion was caused by you? The dissatisfied expression suddenly stiffened, and Dustless noticed that White Zetsu's lower body was burned. His voice lowered, and then he remembered the previous explosion and asked gloomily. The 5 old guys seem to be wrong. I just sneaked in and was discovered by them. White Zetsu smiled bitterly, recalling the shocking scene just now, and his forehead was still sweating. If he hadn't left in advance, he would have been killed by the Gorosei. White Zetsu was confident in his ability to hide, but he didn't expect the Gorosei to be so extraordinary. When he tried to spy on the content of their conversation, he was discovered, and then there was a merciless beating. As a result, the lower half of his body was burned into nothingness. Impossible, according to my guess, those 5 guys should be at the level of the Yonko. There is no reason for them to detect you. Dustless naturally wouldn't forget the great battle a few days ago. The bald Gorosei was even beaten by Dustless. Dustless estimated that he was on par with Kaido and Bigu's mom. Now that he could discover White Zetsu's spying, it was obvious that his strength was not as simple as it seemed. Deliberately hiding their strength. It seems unlikely. They have no reason to do so, but the 5 old men can find you. There is indeed a problem. White Zetsu's ability to hide was beyond doubt. He was absolutely a master in 10,000. The Gorosei could detect him, which indirectly showed that they were mysterious and extraordinary. I don't know much about the specifics. White Zetsu said bitterly. His strength was average. His greatest ability was to spy on intelligence and escape. After Haoshiku Haki reaches the realm of thousand tempering, you can hear the sound of all things in the world, which is also an ability called domineering domain. All abilities will be qualitatively improved. Is it possible that the 5 of them can do it too? Frowning, Dustless thought of the ability used by Akagami, Red Hair, a few days ago. Even if the bald Gorosei did not use Haoshiku Haki when he fought Whitebeard that day, it does not mean that he does not know it. People at the level of the Gorosei have no Haoshiku Haki. Chapter 443. The usual office of Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, has now become a pile of rubble, and the ground has become charred black, with a nauseating burnt smell. On the charred ground, 5 tall figures of different stature are clearly visible. With them as the center, the area with a radius of hundreds of meters is barren. What's even more strange is that all objects have collapsed, both with and without vitality. We haven't moved our muscles and bones for many years, and the world has forgotten us old bones, the Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, with a birthmark on his forehead said gloomily. At this moment, he was particularly strange, surrounded by purple flames, and his eyes were scarlet, giving people a feeling of horror. There were still purple flames in the surroundings that had yet to disperse. Clearly, this was his masterpiece. This purple flame is particularly terrifying, like a deep-sea beast with fangs. Even ordinary gravel is decomposed by this dangerous flame and is strangely swallowed. It's really lawless. The world government's base camp has become a kindergarten. We seem to have become the administrators of the kindergarten. The old man with long hair and beard, who was obviously much taller than the other 4 Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, said with a little ridicule in his tone, but everyone can hear the anger that is enough to annihilate everything. They deliberately let Fishman Tiger attack Mariewa, but this time it is obviously an enemy invasion, which is tantamount to a direct slap in their face. Well, I burned half of that guy's body. You know my ability, he will die. The Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, with a birthmark on his forehead showed his murderous intent. His tiger body shook, and the purple flame behind him shone brightly, and any matter around him was burned into nothingness by him. The other 4 Gorosei, 5 Elder Stars, nodded in agreement. It doesn't matter. The government has become the laughing stock of the whole world. These damaged reputations must be restored. Water can carry a boat, but it can also capsize a boat. You understand this truth. The old man with long hair and beard said with a worried tone. As the highest rulers, they naturally understand the importance of people's hearts. Once it is scattered, it is more serious than the entire marine army being destroyed. Ignorant, this is a self-inflicted trap. Let the pirates fight among themselves, but the idea is good, but the result is cruel. Not only did we not get any benefits, but we also suffered a double loss. The golden-haired Gorosei casually sat on a stone, crossed his arms in front of him, and vented his dissatisfaction. Underestimating the wisdom of those big pirates will make you suffer. The complexion of the bald 5 Elder Stars, who wore a white Taoist robe, changed greatly when he heard this. He was the one who had commanded the battle a few days ago. So, the implication of these words was obviously aimed at him. That's funny. Didn't you agree to my proposal? Obviously, the 5 Elder Stars were not to be trifled with. His words were sharp as he retorted, "Now you're giving advice after the fact. Boring. If talking could change the world, Roger would have died decades ago." The 5 honored stars were clearly people who loved sabers. Although the first-generation ghost blade that had been robbed by Dustless a few days ago had already disappeared, he was now holding a simple and unadorned long saber in his hand. A saber that could catch the eye of a top-level swordsman like him was definitely not something ordinary. "You!" Hearing this, the golden-haired Gorosei's face was filled with anger. He was about to have a good argument when a bland voice came first. "We have worked together for so many years. There is no need to talk about such trivial things. Let's discuss how to deal with the aftermath. We have been provoked by the pirates one after another. If we don't respond, the consequences will be unimaginable." The Gorosei with a scar on the left side of his face and a hat always remained silent. Seeing the possibility of a quarrel between the two, he interrupted in a deep voice, "Kaido's identity and status are not enough to wash away the flaws and stains of the government. We must focus on other aspects. Kaido's status today is ordinary. He has not reached the height of an emperor in the future. Especially now, Kaido is just a prisoner. Even if this prisoner is unreliable, he is still a prisoner. You don't have to worry about this. The reputation of the government will not be affected." The 5 elder stars holding the saber smiled mysteriously. The viciousness in his eyes was clearly visible. His face suddenly became gloomy. "As long as that man is executed on the same day, all the reputation can be saved. A small amount did not make a gentleman, and a great man had to be ruthless." The so-called peace and stability were in fact obtained through the darkness that no one knew about. However, the top battle power of the Marine is not enough. It is necessary to promote a new admiral. The bald Gorosei with the saber suddenly said. After the war a few days ago, he realized that the Marine's battle power is too fragile, especially the top figures. Today, the admiral is only supported by the Buddhist warring states. Although Garp has the strength of an admiral, he is still a vice-admiral. As for the former admiral, Black Wrist, Z, he is no different from a retired admiral and is responsible for teaching the Marine freshmen. It is not polite to say that a legendary figure like Whitebeard can be compared to the Pirate King. If he was in his heyday, the 3 admirals together would not be enough to play with him. Indeed. The other 4 Gorosei nodded in agreement. In the face of the New World's pirates, the combat power of the Marine headquarters is indeed obviously insufficient. This war has explained everything. It is good to break them one by one, but in the face of the pirates, the Marine headquarters is really vulnerable. But there is no suitable candidate. Kuzan, Borsellino, Sakazuki of the Marine headquarters. These people are strong, but they have not reached the level of an admiral, and their age and qualifications are not enough. The blonde Gorosei said. He agreed to add an admiral. It can increase the strength of the Marine, and it can also deter people. The effect is huge. Naturally, there is a candidate. The bald Gorosei with the saber smiled and said confidently. He did not say who he would choose. Chapter 444. Mariewa, which should have been peaceful and quiet, suddenly became chaotic and noisy after White Zetsu stirred it up. The riot continued until dawn and did not stop. With the existence of the heretic Fisher Tiger, the celestial dragons learned to be smart and hid in the tunnels prepared in advance. Looking around, the only celestial dragons who can remain calm in Mariewa is Dustless. Not everyone has his supercilious strength. The higher the status, the more afraid of death. The celestial dragons are this true portrayal. They were born as descendants of God. If they are slaughtered by mere mortals, their end will be too miserable. In the brightly lit villa, after a casual and simple wash, fatigue and sleepiness also swept through his limbs and bones. When Dustless was about to rest, an inexplicable figure suddenly came into sight. The one who confessed without being pressed was Wu Chen's old acquaintance. What a rare guest. Looking up, Dustless said indifferently. His tone was like a weasel paying a New Year's greetings to the chicken, which directly made the latter's face twitch. Looking up, it was the bald Gorosei with a sword. Outrageous, it's really. Forget it, I won't bother with him. Staring at Wu Chen's fearful face, the old face of the bald 5 elder stars holding the saber twitched. It was more uncomfortable than eating 100 pounds of flies. Every time he met with Wu Chen, he seemed to be the one who suffered losses. Now, Wu Chen was the one who made the countercharge. He was especially depressed. Thinking of the major events related to the life and death of the world government, the bald Gorosei with a sword had to sit down and swallow his anger. 800 years ago, the 20 kings established the world government. To some extent, the celestial dragons and the world government are no different from a family. After saying that, the bald quintet with the sword looked at Dustless. After seeing him nod in approval, he secretly thought that there was hope. Then he reorganized his thoughts and said heavily, the world government is now facing an unprecedented dilemma, and we still need the help of Louis South. Holy, losing prestige is not a casual thing. It is definitely more dangerous than the collapse of the Marine headquarters. It means that all over the world, the orders of the world government and their laws may not be carried out. In that case, he would be no different from a commander without an army. Of course. We're all a family. Of course, we have to love each other. Hearing this, Wu Chen crossed his legs and grinned, revealing a row of white teeth. He said seriously, when one side is in trouble, all sides will help. What's more, we are all relatives. When the government is in trouble, we, the celestial dragons, naturally have to do what we can. Dustless's expression was extremely serious. The bald quintet with the sword had doubts in his eyes. He didn't believe that Dustless would be so great. Even so, he still expressed his inner worries. Royce South is also well aware of the battle a few days ago. The gap between the Marines and the group of lawless pirates is really huge. It is good to be able to break them one by one. But once the group of pirates attacks together. In short, the current Marine lacks top-level combat power. Without wasting his breath, the bald quintet said directly, so, the government hopes that Louis South, Holy, can serve as an admiral of the Marine. The bald quintet with the sword said something amazing, and his loud voice was affirmative. Obviously, he was not joking. Of course, there is an essential difference between an admiral and an admiral. This is an official position specially made for you, honorary admiral. The honorary admiral of the Marine headquarters, this is the first honor since ancient times. Honorary admiral? His face was strange, but he didn't directly refuse the quintet. He asked with interest, what is the difference between this honorary admiral and the Buddhist warring states of the Marine headquarters? There must be a difference, there is an essential gap. Seeing that Dustless did not simply refuse, the pressure on his chest disappeared. The quintet with the sword picked up the tea on the stone table and drank a few mouthfuls to moisten his throat. Honorary admiral is specially set up for Louis South, Holy. You don't need to obey any orders from the Marine headquarters. All kinds of busy tasks will not fall on your head. In addition, you can enter any Marine base at any time. With a slightly red face, the old man with the sword introduced, this is the most generous condition in history. If you want to perform any task, you can perform any task. If you want to leave the burden, you can leave the burden. It's completely at will. The only admiral who is so free and unfettered is Dustless. It's tailor-made. What Louis South, Saint, needs to do is to lend a helping hand when the Marine headquarters is under threat. The premise is that the enemy is attacking the Marine headquarters. The rest of the time you are free and will not be disturbed. Hearing this, Dustless nodded thoughtfully. Such generous conditions are really good. Without doing anything, he can get the highest position of an admiral. It's really good, and he only needs to act when the Marine headquarters is threatened, which is in line with the lazy character of the celestial dragons. However, there is a big problem. This so-called honorary admiral seems to have no power at all. In other words, it's in name only. It's not a problem to be the so-called honorary admiral, although I don't care about the power of the Marine headquarters, but... His eyes fell on the Gorosei, 5 elder stars. Dustless smiled, showing a fox-like sly smile. This, if you have something to say, just say it. The proud look froze, the bald quintet with the sword asked unnaturally. He knew that if he wanted to do something for Dustless, he must pay enough chips to impress him. As you said before, we are all one family. Naturally, I can't say two things. Being an honorary admiral is my relief to your government and the Marine. Now it's your government and the Marine's turn to relieve me. Chapter 445. In the face of Dustless's high price, Gorosei, 5 elder stars, can only compromise. The only thing worthy of the 5 elder stars' consolation was that Wuchen rarely had any ideas about his treasured saber. Only then did his heart, which was in a state of turmoil, sink like a stone into the sea and become abnormally calm. Although Dustless's price is enough to make him and the other 4 Gorosei, 5 elder stars, vomit blood, they can reluctantly accept it. The next morning, the most conspicuous banner in the newspaper, the latest movement of the Marine, shocked the world. The content of the newspaper is quite simple and casual, just a few understated words, but the fluctuation that came out is unprecedented. The pirates of the New World were shocked by this sudden news. The large black font is clearly visible, Marine Headquarters New Admiral, Royce South. The figure left on the banner is thin and looks very thin, even less than 2 meters tall, which is the opposite of the 3 or 4 meters tall man. His entire body was painted black, and it was obvious that it was intentional. This mysterious unknown new admiral, for a time, became the focus of the whole world. Since he can become an admiral, he can't be ordinary. In particular, this mysterious character obviously didn't climb step by step. The Marine has never heard of such a person. Obviously, he was directly promoted to the position of an admiral. The current Admiral Sengoku and the former, Black Wrist, Z, both of them have confronted the pirate king Roger. Even if this admiral is not as good as Sengoku and Z, he can easily change the pattern of the world. The Grand Line, an unknown island covered with ice and snow. Royce's surname. Isn't this the surname of the Celestial Dragon's family? Is it a coincidence? On the white snow, there are messy footprints. Looking forward, a row of figures in front is clearly visible. One of them is wearing a pink feather, walking among the crowd. Apparently, he is their boss. It is the Don Quixote pirates. Hey! Brother Ming, the Marine unexpectedly has a new admiral, and it seems that he is a mysterious character. Maybe he is just a street goods. This kind of thing, the Marine used to do a lot of things. The sloppy treble always had doubts. The Marine headquarters was familiar with conspiracies and tricks, and this kind of boring trick has never been used before. You're really trying to fool the world. There's no need to just show off your back. With a flick of his finger, the newspaper suddenly exploded into pieces and slowly fell to the ground like snow. Doflamingo casually stepped the newspaper pieces into the snow. What he cared about the most was not the choice of great general, but the person's surname. It should be a coincidence. The Lois family seems to have only one child left. They shouldn't make such a sensational joke to please the world. The guys in the Marine won't allow the Celestial Dragons to make trouble. Doflamingo secretly guessed. The Lois family was also a Celestial Dragon family. The Celestial Dragons gave the world the impression that they were lazy and ignorant. Doflamingo also thinks so. He never thought that there could be an admiral among the Tenryubito, and even if the Marine headquarters is afraid of the Tenryubito, it is absolutely impossible to let an incompetent waste be an admiral. But then again, that guy Corazon is really a spy sent by the Marine. Treble's sloppy face was cautious, with a hint of hatred. Most pirates were heartless, but there were some who valued friendship. People who believed in traitors and spies, and people who could control their emotions very well would also go berserk. Don't worry about him, after you get the surgeon fruit, Corazon. The road is your own choice, and you have to pay the price. Blue veins appeared on his forehead, and Doflamingo's murderous intent was revealed. The biting chill dropped the temperature of the surrounding space to the freezing point. The blue veins on his forehead seemed to have worms wriggling, and he was extremely scared. He treated Corazon as a close relative, but the latter was a spy sent by the Marine. The last conscience in Doflamingo's heart disappeared with Corazon's betrayal. At the same time, the pirates all over the world also learned that the Marine headquarters had added a mysterious admiral, but their thoughts were very different. Some are naturally worried. After all, it's a profession that is opposite to each other. The enemy is big, and pirates will inevitably think about danger in peace. Some are also holding the mentality of laughing. All in all, after such deliberate publicity by the world government, the name Royce South has spread all over the world like a hurricane. Dustless, the originator, is now leisurely, living the life of a second generation. The life of a Tenryubito is so free and decadent, and all kinds of ugly life are used to it in front of them. In the super-large auction house. What good things can there be in this place? In the luxurious seat, Dustless was quite uncomfortable. At the moment, he was wearing bulky clothes with bubbles, obviously dressed as a Tenryubito. The group of people sitting next to him are all Tenryubito. They are as big as mountains. Looking around, there are no less than a dozen of them. However, compared with these fat mountains, Dustless is obviously a beautiful scenery. Forget it, since I'm here, I'll take it easy. Dustless looked at the auction list sent by the staff of the auction house. Most of them were strong slaves and all kinds of beautiful women, including various legendary swords. There were even a few devil fruits, but most of them were ordinary goods. Suddenly, Dustless's impatient eyes flashed with a strange light, and the pages in his hands stopped and fell on a young woman with blonde hair. This person's appearance was extremely beautiful, and she could be considered to be a beauty that could captivate birds and beasts. However, what Wu Chen cared about wasn't her appearance, but because Wu Chen knew this person. Moreover, if it wasn't for the fact that he had many important matters to deal with now, he would even personally capture this woman. The queen of the Fishman Island, Princess Otoheim, was caught, and it seems that she is being auctioned as a slave. This is very interesting. Chapter 446. Dustless narrowed his eyes and thought of the past of Princess Otoheim. After a while, the corners of his mouth outlined a meaningful smile. The ability of the fishman is quite strange. Otoheim was born with observation haki, and her daughter Shirahoshi is an ancient weapon, Sea King. How can she be caught in the sea? Closing the list of auction items, Dustless can't help but sigh that the world is fickle. The princess of the Fishman Island was caught as a slave. Fate is really changeable and bizarre. Time passed unknowingly. After a few minutes, the auction began in a hurry. There were as many as a dozen celestial dragons waiting, and they didn't dare to delay. If the celestial dragons get angry and smash the auction house, they can only admit defeat. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this auction house. After a simple brewing, the person who presided over the auction slowly appeared under all the eyes. It was a black-haired beauty with a good figure. The tall figure immediately attracted a lot of prying eyes and screams, and the cold scene finally boiled up. The performance of the celestial dragons was mediocre. They were all ugly to challenge the human vision. Their bodies were bloated and no different from pigs. However, each of them was sitting on 3,000 beauties. There were a lot of wives that could captivate the birds and beasts. Only Dustless is now an anomaly. He doesn't have a wife. In the world of celestial dragons, changing women is as simple and casual as eating and drinking water. First of all, the first auction item is the Zoan dog fruit. The starting price is 100 million berries. The beautiful auctioneer introduced the devil fruit in her hand. She used a seductive tone to drive the atmosphere of the auction. Coupled with her hot figure, the effect was unparalleled. The price of the devil fruit increased exponentially. I'll pay 130 million berries. In order to get a smile from the beauty, I'll pay 180 million berries. I'll pay 200 million berries. You dregs, shut up, I'll pay 500 million berries. After a red-faced quarrel, in the end, there were celestial dragons who couldn't listen to the buzzing of these flies and simply hammered the price. He didn't spend money to buy the devil fruit, but to buy silence. There doesn't seem to be anything good. Closing his eyes, Dustless knew that the auction of Princess Odoheim was the highlight, and it was deliberately suppressed at the end, and then he closed his eyes to rest. Time passed quickly, and he didn't know how long it took. Dustless's thoughts returned to his senses, and with the staging of the final highlight, he slowly opened his dark eyes. The next item to be auctioned is a fishman, and it's a goldfish, with a starting price of 500 million berries. The meticulously made ground suddenly caved in, and the round transparent pool poked its head out. The figure swimming in the water was the princess of the Fishmen Island, Odoheim. The only difference was that there was a collar around her snow-white neck that indicated her status as a slave. At this moment, Princess Audrey's face was full of anxiety, and her shining eyes were full of despair. Especially when she saw the fiery eyes of the celestial dragons, her heart was full of despair. 600 million berries. A celestial dragon roared. This young master offers 800 million berries. Another celestial dragon was also unwilling to be outdone and coveted. I'll pay. Wuchen just stared at Princess Audrey indifferently. His dead eyes flashed with surprise, and his face was strange. The majestic perception power shrouded her body. He was surprised to find that Princess Odoheim in front of him was pregnant, and what surprised Dustless the most was that she was already pregnant, but she was still a virgin. This is strange. Touching his chin, Dustless stared at Princess Odoheim. After a while, his brow wrinkled. Princess Odoheim's body seemed to be very strange, and there was a gap between it and the human body. For example, the future Blackbeard Marshall D. Tinker's body structure is also very special. Help me. A crisp and sweet cry for help resounded in his mind. Dustless was slightly stunned and looked up. It was Princess Odoheim who was staring at him with watery eyes. Why did she ask me for help? So that's why. The corner of his mouth twitched. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry, and the doubts in his eyes turned into a color of understanding. Compared with this group of fat and bloated celestial dragons, Dustless is probably the only human existence. Therefore, Princess Odoheim chose to ask for help from Dustless. Compared with these hungry celestial dragons, Dustless, who has never bid, looks more reliable. Sure enough, it's a mysterious race. They are born with observation hockey, and they can speak directly to me. With a flash of surprise in his eyes, Dustless was quite surprised, and then nodded towards Princess Odoheim, indicating that she didn't need to worry about her safety. I'll pay 1.5 billion berries. Biting his teeth, a celestial dragon gave a desperate price, and then looked down at everyone with a proud face, warning and pride in his eyes. 3 billion berries. His indifferent voice carried indifference, yet it was gentle, yet it carried some sort of indescribable charm, and it spread throughout the entire auction hall, causing everyone to be dumbstruck. The meaning of this emotionless voice was as if 30 stones were not worth mentioning. Looking at the place where the voice sounded, a handsome celestial dragon came into view, with a knife-like face and a handsome face. It was Dustless Wooey. Fart, where did you get so many berries? An angry roar came over. Looking up, it was the celestial dragon who had bid 1.5 billion berries. At this moment, he was pointing a golden pistol at Dustless and asked fiercely. Berries? This kind of thing is just a simple word for me, it has no meaning at all. Without looking at the furious celestial dragon, Dustless just snapped his fingers casually, and the space behind him suddenly surged with dense ripples. Countless weapons made of gold floated in the void, and the golden flashes of the pulsating golden light turned the entire auction hall golden. I lack everything, but I don't lack money. You're tuning into the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.